Hello and welcome. It's 10 a.m. on Wednesday, the 7th of January. You're tuned in to our mid-morning newscast here on ARIRANG TV. Thanks ever so much for joining us on this freezing winter day here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broome. Let's take a look at what's making the headlines. South Korea's defense ministry warns North Korea has taken huge strides militarily over the past 2 years and now has the technology to miniaturize nuclear warheads. Korea's rival parties agree on a bill to compensate the families of the victims and the survivors of the Sewol-ho ferry disaster. Plus, U.S. crude prices tumble yet again, hitting just $48 a barrel. Prices have now fallen by more than 50% in the space of just over 6 months. And we start with that warning from South Korea's defense ministry that North Korea now has the technological know-how to miniaturize nuclear warheads. That finding was among a handful of worrying military developments in the north that were contained within the ministry's white paper that is published every 2 years. Our Connie Kim starts us off.
South Korea says North Korea appears to have made significant advancements in its military capabilities. This in particular in the North's capability to make nuclear warheads small enough to fit on ballistic missiles.
8 years have passed since North Korea carried out its first nuclear test in 2006. Pyongyang's miniaturization of nuclear weapons would appear to have reached a significant level.
Seoul's defense ministry says this could be a major threat as nuclear warheads could reach the U.S. mainland if successfully mounted to ballistic missiles. This marks the first time for South Korea's defense ministry to evaluate North Korea's nuclear technology capabilities. South Korea sees more growth in North Korea's ballistic missile technology. Its Taepodong-2 long-range missile is evaluated to have a range of 10,000 kilometers compared to 6,700 kilometers in the past. North Korea's military has also grown by an estimated 10,000 soldiers from 2012 to a total of 1.2 million. Now that's nearly double the size of South Korea's forces. But what's not changed in the latest white paper was South Korea calling North Korea as its, quote, enemy. Connie Kim, ARIRANG News.
Now, North Korea has scolded South Korea for doing nothing to stop a group of North Korean defectors from flying more than 500,000 anti-Pyongyang leaflets across the border earlier this week. The North state-run Korean Central News Agency on Tuesday urged Seoul to ban the leaflet drive and blamed the South for not stepping in to stop the activists. Pyongyang went on to say that improving inter-Korean relations cannot be a one-way street and asked Seoul to clarify that it has the will to engage in sincere dialogue. Now, North Korea is extremely sensitive about the scattering of these leaflets, even going so far as to renege on an agreement to hold high-level talks with South Korea late last year. And while we're on the topic of trying to get these talks going, President Park Geun-hye has called on North Korea to swiftly come to inter-Korean dialogue. Her remarks came during the first cabinet meeting of the year on Tuesday, pointing out that many obstacles have held inter-Korean relations back from progressing. President Park said she was relieved to hear Pyongyang intends to engage in talks.
북한은 조속히 남북 간 대화와 협력의 장으로 나와서 우리와 한반도의 평화 정착 또 통일을 위한 구체적인 사업을 실질적으로 협의해 주기를 바랍니다.
Referring to North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's New Year's speech, she said it was significant, especially as this year marks the 70th anniversary since the two Koreas were divided. The South Korean president put a lot of emphasis on setting up a good foundation for dialogue, adding that at this point it's crucial Pyongyang back up its words with sincere action. Now, following Washington's latest sanctions on North Korea, some lawmakers in the US are urging the government there to relist Pyongyang as a state sponsor of terrorism. But what effect could this have on the possible upcoming talks between the two Koreas? Hwang Sang-hee reports.
The latest U.S. sanctions on North Korea following its cyber attack on Sony Pictures have sparked fresh discussions among lawmakers in Washington.
What happened here is that North Korea landed a virtual bomb on Sony's parking lot and ultimately had real consequences to it as a company and to many individuals who work there.
Some are even calling on President Barack Obama to follow through on his pledge to review relisting North Korea as a state sponsor of terrorism. Representative Ileana Ros-Lehtinen said in a statement that North Korea should have never been taken off the list and added she will reintroduce legislation to redesignate the regime as a state sponsor of terrorism as a means of putting more pressure on Pyongyang. The White House is taking a cautious stance, saying such a move requires a very specific technical justification. However, the U.S. State Department said the new executive order is the first aspect of Washington's response, noting there are ongoing discussions about other options. Analysts say the heightened tensions between the U.S. and North Korea will not affect the new momentum between the two Koreas for now.
Relations between North Korea and the United States were bad before South Korea proposed inter-Korean talks. Since both Koreas agree on the need for dialogue and the leaders have shown a willingness, I expect North Korea to make a counter-proposal for talks in the near future.
But should Pyongyang launch a violent protest, analysts expect discussions on additional U.S. sanctions to expand and warn those tensions could quickly trickle through to the Korean peninsula. Hwang Sang-hee, ARIRANG News.
Now, the United States says it wants Japan to build strong and constructive relations with Korea and China. The State Department praised Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe for saying this week that he does plan to express remorse for Japan's wrongdoings in a special statement marking the 70th anniversary of the end of World War II, that anniversary in August. State Department spokesperson Jen Psaki said on Tuesday that Japan's previous apologies, the Murayama and Kono statements, marked important chapters in Japan's efforts to improve relations with its neighbors. She also said that Washington encourages Tokyo to work with Korea and China to resolve concerns over history. The Korean government wants Japan to remove an online video that promotes a false claim to Korea's Dokdo Island. Seoul's foreign ministry spokesperson said the video, which was posted last month, not only makes an unjustified claim, but also represents a serious provocation. With the aim of using the 17-minute-long YouTube video in schools in Japan, Tokyo says its sovereignty over the islets in the 17th century proves its claim. The ministry spokesperson in Seoul added it was unfortunate Japan is educating future generations of Japanese with a video that includes a distorted view of history. Korea's rival political parties have agreed on how to compensate the families of those who lost their lives in last April's Sewol-ho ferry disaster. The bill that was agreed upon on Tuesday features the establishment of a special committee under the Prime Minister's office, which will decide how much each family will receive. The parties decided to first use the $114 million donated by citizens and businesses when compensating the families, and provide additional amounts from state coffers if necessary. The high school students who survived this tragedy will be given extra privileges when they apply for university, and a trauma centre will be set up to manage their mental health in the years to come. The rival parties plan to pass the special Sewol-ho ferry compensation bill at a plenary session next Monday. Now, we are still watching extremely closely the recovery effort over the Java Sea. We're going to connect live to our Eunice Kim at the News Centre now, who's been following developments for us pretty much ever since this disaster. So, Eunice, there's been no sign of this elusive black box or even the tail of the missing AirAsia plane. We heard yesterday that it was possibly located. And really now, the clock really is ticking for the search teams.
Yeah, that's right, Mark. And no one perhaps feels that time crunch more than those directly involved with this search effort. It has been 10 days now. And at this point, medical experts warn that those bodies that are not strapped into the seats could begin to sink, which of course would make it more difficult for divers to eventually get to them. Strong currents continue to complicate search efforts. On Tuesday, search teams did salvage debris, plane debris like seats, safety information cards, and the like, but there is still no pickup of the so-called pings from the black box, which has left some experts really pretty baffled, given that the plane is believed to be in relatively shallow waters between 30 to 40 meters deep. Now, some opine silt could be blocking the signals from the transmitters. Indonesia's Search and Rescue Agency did report Tuesday a U.S. search team spotted two large metal objects via sonar, but they will have to go in to verify that they are indeed plane debris. Two more bodies were found, bringing the total to 39, still less than a third of the 162 passengers the plane was carrying, most of them Indonesian and 3 of them, of course, Korean.
Well, we certainly hope they eventually find the rest of the passengers and crew on board that plane. Now, oil prices, they're still falling for the 4th straight session, in fact, and they're now below $48 a barrel in Tuesday trading. They've tumbled a lot, and the downward trend again translated into losses for stocks on Wall Street as well.
Yeah, that's right. U.S. stocks ended lower for a 5th straight session. The Dow shedding 130 points on the back of a sell-off of energy stocks once again, as well as new data that showed America's service sector grew at a slower pace. But of course, the topic on everyone's mind, oil. At the New York Mercantile Exchange, light sweet crude shed 4.2% to close at just under $48 a barrel, while Brent crude ended 3.8% lower at a little over $51. Both benchmarks marking their lowest finish since the spring of 2009. And this means between Monday and Tuesday alone, oil has actually fallen nearly 10% this week. Now, this as the disparity between supply and demand only looks to grow. In addition to increased supply from Russia and Iraq, Morgan Stanley, in a recent released report, said production could grow from fields in more fields around the world in the U.S., Canada, as well as Latin America, and also Iran if international sanctions on that country are lifted.
Well, Eunice, we're going to take a look very shortly at how the oil price is affecting global markets. But thank you very much for your reports, and we'll see you back at noon.
See you then.
Now, staying with economic news, and Korea's finance minister says he expects the domestic economy to kick on in the second half of this year as newly introduced policies start to bear fruit. Speaking at a conference with the heads of financial institutions in Seoul on Tuesday, Choi Gang-hwan said the government's focus is on structural reforms, which it hopes will boost vitality in the labour, finance, education and public sectors here in Korea. The minister added that last year's economic growth was mainly driven by exports, but he expects domestic demand to pick up this year. Now, the nation's largest automaker, Hyundai Motor Group, has laid out how much it's going to invest in facilities and R&D over the next few years, and it's certainly not holding back at all. Our Kim Ji-yeon has the details.
Korea's largest automaker, Hyundai Motor Group, plans to devote $73 billion to facilities and R&D investments from now through 2018. That's around $18 billion a year, $1 billion more than the government's spending for national R&D investment. 85% of that total will go toward improving performance standards and developing hybrids and smart cars. Another $10 billion will be set aside to build the auto group's new business complex on acquired land in the Seoul district of Gangnam.
With the investment plan, we aim to raise our brand value and lay the foundation to lead the global market by 2018.
An estimated $56 billion, or 3/4 of Hyundai's investments, will be concentrated in Korea. The company also plans to recruit around 7,400 people during the next 4 years. The investment plan is expected to help Hyundai Motor and its sister company Kia Motors meet its global sales target of 8.2 million automobiles in 2015. The automakers are estimated to have sold a combined 8 million units globally last year, which would be a record. This despite unfavorable currency conditions and the slow global recovery. Kim Jung, ARIRANG News.
Now, another Korean corporate heavyweight, Samsung Electronics, has ranked second in the world in terms of R&D spending for 2 consecutive years now, citing figures filed by the European Commission. The Korea Institute of Science and Technology Evaluation and Planning says Samsung poured $12 billion into research and development in 2013. There was only one company higher than that. Volkswagen, the German automaker, topped the list at $14 billion. Microsoft and Intel came in at 3rd and 4th, respectively. Now, 3 Korean firms, including Samsung, ranked in the top 100. LG Electronics was 49th and Hyundai Motor 99th. The world's biggest tech brands are in Sin City, Las Vegas, for the 2015 Consumer Electronics Show. From intelligent cars to high-tech TVs, our Connie Lee walks us through the hottest trends at this year's event.
It's one of the world's biggest tech gadget fairs, involving about 3,600 companies. The Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas kicks off on Tuesday. More than 150,000 tech heads are set to visit for a first look at the next big thing. So what are some of the trends this year? Judging from the products already announced, it looks like some high-tech TVs will play a big role. 4K TVs, otherwise known as Ultra HD televisions, may go mainstream this year. They're defined by their displays, which have 4 times the resolution as their HD counterparts. Both LG and Samsung will be presenting a number of these models at the show, including Samsung's new Tizen-powered curved 4K TV. And how about some autonomous connected cars?
The autonomous car will be a big topic at CES. All the major auto manufacturers come to this show. They come here to show off the ways in which their cars are working with your smartwatch, with your phone.
Major automakers like Mercedes-Benz and BMW are set to display their latest intelligent cars. Wearable smart devices will also take center stage. Hundreds of companies will show off their latest wearable products, including different accessories designed to work with these devices. The growth of 3D printers, robotics, and drones will also be a hot trend this year, with the buzz phrase, the Internet of Things, being one of the major themes.
The Internet of Things is a really general term that stands in for devices talking to each other without you across the Internet.
The International CES is set to run through Friday. Connie Lee, ARIRANG News.
Now, the pockets of smokers in Korea are hurting from the recent hike in cigarette prices. But among those feeling the heat the most are men serving their compulsory military duty. And given their very low paychecks, the almost doubling in price is going to make it very hard for them to continue lighting up. Our Kim Yeon-bin reports.
For young Korean men serving compulsory military duty in the barracks, the recent cigarette price hike is a heavy burden. An average price of a cigarette pack used to cost roughly $2.30, but with the hike, it has jumped to a little over $4. That means if a private were to smoke a pack a day, he would use up all of his monthly paycheck before the month ends. Up until 2005, the Korean military provided each serviceman with 15 packs a month, free of charge. But faced with criticism that it encourages young men to pick up smoking, the free pack policy was phased out in 2009. The smoking rate in the military has slowly declined over that time as well, from roughly 60% in 2005 to about 50% in 2009, and it's been edging down ever since. The military hopes to see the smoking rate dip below 30% as a result of this month's nationwide cigarette price hike. To nudge the cadets in the right direction, the Korean military set up clinics that encourage cadets to quit smoking.
After the price hike, several units requested that we open smoking clinics. The cadets have been very eager to take part.
That eagerness has taken the form of cadets enrolling in educational classes and using nicotine patches, with a pledge to quit smoking once and for all. Kim Hyun-bin, ARIRANG News.
And a good Wednesday morning to you all as we kick things off with the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Games. Now on Monday, the governor of Gangwon Province, Choi Moon-soon, stated that co-hosting the event with North Korea would be a symbol of peace and great for both nations. But the organizers are still against the idea. Now on Tuesday, the organizing committee's Vice President Kwak Young-jin came out, stating that they refuse to co-host with any other countries, even if it's North Korea. Kwak added that the governor's comments were, quote, inappropriate comments that disappointed the people of South Korea. Now, with the Pyeongchang Winter Games a little more than 3 years away now, organizers continue to remain busy, making sure all the constructions will be complete in time. Now, some of the athletes here in the nation are so popular that they're technically celebrities. And one of those athletes is rhythmic gymnast Son Yeon-jae. And today, she's headed over to Russia in preparations for her 2015 season. Now, the 20-year-old rhythmic gymnast who had 11 consecutive podium finishes in the World Cup events and a bronze medal at the 2014 World Championships prepares for the new season as she'll leave to Moscow today. Of course, with 4 new programs for the new season, there's a lot of work to be done for her as she stated the importance of the 2015 season since it'll practically be a preparation for the 2016 Rio Summer Games, where she hopes to win Korea's first Olympic medal in the sport. Now, if you take a look back at last year, Kim Hyo-ju was one of the hottest stars in the sporting world, and the new year kicked off well for her as she jumped up again in the latest world rankings. Now, not a lot of changes in the latest world rankings except for the 19-year-old Kim Hyo-ju, who passed Ryu So-yeon for 7th in the Rolex World Rankings. After winning 3 majors in the KLPGA, 1 major title in the LPGA last season, she's expected to have a big season this year as well, as many believe that her ranking will continue to climb in 2015. Meanwhile, Park In-bi and Lydia Ko remain 1st and 2nd in the world rankings. The 2015 Asian Cup is now 2 days away, and the Korean national football team hopes to win their first title in 55 years. And while it's expected that the team will struggle a bit to the lack of offense, the Australian media, well, they have their eyes on Son Heung-min to thrive. And according to News.com, Son Heung-min is one of the 10 must-watch footballers during the 2015 Asian Cup, as they expect the midfielder to do the big things for the Korean national football team. They added that Son Heung-min has the ability to beat Australia, as Korea is grouped with the host nation in Group A. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day, and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Good morning. Well, be sure to cover up from head to toe before heading out today. The temperatures have dropped to nearly -10 up north, including here in Seoul. In the meantime, people in the east will continue to suffer from dry weather, with dry weather advisory still in place, and cold wave advisory was issued for some parts in Gangwon-do and Gyeonggi-do provinces. Now, mostly sunny skies are in store throughout the day, but it will not help much to boost up the highs, as the daily high here in the capital will only peak at -2, while Daegu and Gwangju will rise to 3, and Busan will reach 6 this afternoon. Now, as for the other regions, Jeju Island will rise to 5, while Daejeon and Dokdo will be getting up to 1 and 2 respectively. And tomorrow will be as cold as today, so be sure to stay bundled, and cold snaps should start to ease up on Friday, and finally it will bounce back to the seasonal averages on the the weekend. But that's all for Korea, and here's international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that's all we have for now. Plenty more stories online, and we'll be back at noon Korea time with our next newscast. Until then, goodbye.